Hello, today our topic is a 4-week hospital at home intervention on self-reported patient satisfaction score among elderly patients with chronic disease in Hong Kong. Experimental study. Our group members are Jerry, Simon, Shelley, Arlene, and Carly. And this is our table of content. Let's talk about the background information. Please take a look at the data in this section. According to projection by the Census and Statistics Department, by 2046, senior age 65 and over will account for 36% of Hong Kong's total population. That is approximately 2.74 million people. Meanwhile, the number of senior age 80 and over will rise to 93 million, representing 11.5% of the total population. This means that in the future, 1 in every 3 Hong Kong residents will be an elderly person, and 1 in every 10 will be a senior age 80 or older. A direct consequence of population aging is the growing burden of chronic disease. Currently, approximately 2.22 million people in Hong Kong suffer from chronic disease, with senior age 65 and over accounting nearly half, 47% to be exist. Among those aged 80 and over, the prevalence of chronic disease reached as high as 88%. In other words, almost every elderly person has at least one chronic condition, such as diabetes, hypertension, or heart disease. The growing number of patients with chronic disease inevitable place enormous pressure on the healthcare system. The hospitalization rate among the elderly is far higher than that of younger people, and their average medical costs are 4.3 times those of the general population. As a result, the burden on hospital beds has become extremely heavy. Therefore, it is clear that the combination of an aging population, a high prevalence of chronic disease, and a shortage of hospital beds pose a very real challenge to Hong Kong's public health care system. So the key question is, how can we provide elderly patients with chronic conditions with more efficient and patient-central alternative to hospitalization while ensuring the quality of care? Home hospital involve multidisciplinary team providing hospital-level medical care to eligible acute patients in their home. This study employed 3 methods. The first was a prospective quasi-experimental design. Rather than randomizing patients, the researcher directly compared home hospital care with traditional inpatient care in a real-world clinical setting. This approach better reflects reality and is particularly suitable for acute care of the elder, where randomization is difficult. Second, the IPTW method was used. Simply put, this method ensures that patients in both groups are on the same starting line in terms of age, chronic conditions, and physical function, thereby reducing bias and making the result more reliable. Third is a multidimensional comprehensive evaluation. The study did not focus on a single indicator but assessed outcome from multiple perspectives. Chronically, it examined 30-day remission and mortality rate. In terms of resource, it looks at length of stay, while home-based care involved 1 additional day overall. It saved the hospital 682 bed days. Regarding patients, it evaluated quality of life and satisfaction, and in terms of safety, there are only 2 expected deaths in the home-based care group. This is why we believe that in the city like Hong Kong, which face severe aging and chronic bed shortage, HAH is a direction well worth exploring. And let's move the next part to Jerry.
So thank you, Aaron Lee, and my name is Xu Junwei Jerry. And now we have seen the strength on Hong Kong public wards. So let's look at the what literature say about the global consensus. So critically, we have seen the remarkable success in nearby regions. Our 2025 study from Taiwan, published in the press, significantly examined the HAH for the patient with infection like pneumonia. They find a 100% satisfaction rate among the participants. And beyond just happiness, the model proved more efficiencies reduced the average length of stand from nearly 11 days into our wards to just 7.5 days at home, all while maintaining strict clinical safety standards. And in fact, regional data from Singapore, published by the Allowinage just this year, confirmed that HAH significantly outperformed traditional wards in patient satisfactions. The evidence suggests that for the chronic disease management, the health environment reduces the iatrogenic risk of hospitals, Specifically, the hospitals acquired infections and delirium often seen in elderly patients when they are removed from familiar surroundings, which leading the argument that the safety is equal, the satisfaction become the decided factors to the patient. And however, the literature is not without its frictions, as removing the model into the context of higher density city like Hong Kong, two major academic debates emerged. The first is the caregiver burden. While the patient is often more satisfied at home, critics like Seuss in 2023 point out that we are essentially shifting the loads of care from paid hospital staff to unpaid family members or the domestic helpers. So in a small living space of Hong Kong, this can lead to significant caregiver fatigue. So the second debate is the safety perceptions gap. Even though the clinical data prove the HAH is safe, there is documented disconnect in how a patient feels, and without a doctor physically present 24/7, some elderly patients report higher anxiety, which can negatively impact their self-report satisfactions. So those two sides, the clinical efficiency versus the human burden, are what we must to balance. So those bringing us to the core gap. So our study aim to film, while we have secondary data from other countries, there is surprisingly lack of local experimental study within the Hong Kong public healthcare settings. So furthermore, the temporal gap, the research overlooked the critical 4-week transactional period, focus instead on 7-day accurate or 6-month outcomes. And the final gap is the urban density variables, the limit understanding of how Hong Kong the triple threats, including the urban density, the aging problem, and the bad strange influence the patient satisfaction. So regarding to the aforementioned gap and several literature reviews, which indicated our research purpose, this study addressed the gap by utilizing the experimental study to compare the satisfaction score directly against the standard inpatient care to provide the necessary causal evidence to inform the local healthcare policy. And next part, I will hand it to Simon.
Thank you, Jerry. I'm Yuan Kachen Simon, and now I will talk about research question. In the research focus, this study investigates patient satisfaction with hospital at home care for elderly patients in 65 years old or above with chronic diseases in Hong Kong. In the research question, does a 4-week daily assessment hospital at home intervention improve self-reported patient satisfaction scores among elderly patients with chronic diseases in Hong Kong compared with public hospitals inpatient services? In type of study, this is an experimental study because the research explicitly involves examining the effects of a specific intervention, the 4-week hospital at home program, on a measurable outcome, patient satisfaction scores, under controlled conditions. It established a direct comparison between two distinct groups. There is an experimental group receiving the hospital at home service and a control group receiving public hospitals inpatient services. The Hong Kong Inpatient Experience Questionnaire will be used to measure participants' satisfaction scores in both patients in hospital at home service and the public hospitals inpatient service. The differences in scores between these two participant groups will indicate whether hospital at home services can improve patient satisfaction. In the rationale of study, this design is suitable for the research question because it isolates the impact of the care delivery service in 9 perspectives, including the patient emotional and environmental experience. By directly contrasting the home setting with traditional inpatient wards, the methodology makes it possible to directly infer effects regarding whether the hospital at home model itself drives higher satisfaction. In measurement and approach, Hong Kong Inpatient Experience Questionnaire is commissioned by the Jockey Club School of Public Health and Primary Care and is fully adopted by the Hospital Authority. It is a comprehensively validated instrument specifically designed to assess care quality and patient experience within the local public healthcare system. The HKIEQ consists of 54 evaluative items in 9 dimensions, with a scoring scale of 0 to 10. To evaluate whether there is a statistical significance, an independent sample t-test will be conducted to compare the mean HKIEQ satisfaction scores between the hospital at home experimental group and the public hospital inpatient service control group. In null hypothesis, there's no statistically significant difference in mean HKIEQ scores between elderly patients with chronic diseases receiving a 4-week hospital at home intervention and those receiving public hospital inpatient services. And for the alternative hypothesis, elderly patients with chronic diseases receiving a 4-week hospital at home intervention will show a statistically significant increase in mean HKIEQ scores compared to those receiving public hospital inpatient service. In the ethical issues, from an ethical standpoint, the study presents minimal risk to the elderly participant, as it relies entirely on a non-invasive post-intervention questionnaire that does not interfere with prescribed medical treatment. And the ethical safeguards will be implemented, including obtaining comprehensive informed consent from both patients and their primary caregivers, and ensuring all collected survey data remains strictly anonymized to comply with local privacy regulation. Next, I'll pass to Liu Jie to talk about next part.
Thank you, Yongka Chen, and hello everyone, I'm Liu Jie. My part is research gap. Why is this research gap important to fill? Overseas studies showed HAH costs less and reduced hospital complications, but Hong Kong has no local experimental evidence. This gap must be filled. Argument 1. Lower cost. A Singapore study found that HAH costs per bed days 24% lower, and cost per impossibles 24% lower. For Hong Kong, relying on overseas data without local validations give inaccurate estimates because our healthcare financing is different. Argument 2. HAH reduce hospital acquires infection and complications. Hospital stay increase infection, delirium, functional decline. Singapore HAH patients sleep better, walk more, and spend less time in bed. Hong Kong public hospital runs at over 100% occupancy. Overcrowding raise infections risk. HAH is safer, especially for the elderly. Argument 3. High patient satisfaction. Taiwan's reported 100% satisfaction. Singapore over 29% will use HAH again. For Hong Kong, satisfaction determines acceptance, but we have no local satisfaction data, a critical missing piece. How does our study fill this gap? Our study is not a repeat. It is the first to provide evidence for 3 Hong Kong-specific problems. Problem 1. No local evidence for Hong Kong's elderly chronic patients. Hong Kong has 2.2 million chronic patients, nearly 60% age above 65. Bed occupancy is over 100%. No HAH experiments done on this group. Our study filled this gap. First, local data on clinical safety and satisfaction for Hong Kong elderly with heart failure, COPT. Problem 2. Policymakers don't like if Hong Kong patients will accept home care. Taiwan and Singapore has measured satisfaction. Hong Kong never has. Our study filled this gap. Patient satisfaction as primary outcomes, comparing 4-week HAH and standards weared care. First such data in Hong Kong. Problem 3. Regional similarities still need local evidence. Singapore face density and aging, but Hong Kong has unique feature public hospital dominance. For regional domestic helper care, high housing density finding could not be copied directly. Our study filled this gap, conduct in Hong Kong real context, and will inform other dense Asian cities. Conclusion: our study filled the literature gap with 3 original elements: target populations, Hong Kong elderlies with chronic disease, outcomes, patient satisfaction, and context, Hong Kong healthcare system. This sets the stage for the next member, Pan Xiaojing, to discuss feasibility and impact. Thank you.
Thank you, Liu Jie. I'm Sherry Pan Xiaojing. Next, I will focus on the impact and the feasibility, then briefly conclude. First is explain how the study impact in Hong Kong context. As we know, Hong Kong is facing increasing pressure from population aging and the chronic diseases. According to Hong Kong's primary healthcare blueprint, the system is more coordinated and community-based care instead of relying only on a hospital center model. So in this context, hospital at home may offer a more patient-centered alternative for elderly patients with chronic diseases. This idea is supported by a cost study in Singapore. They found that hospital at home had lower costs than standard hospitalization, while short-term outcomes such as readmission remained similar. This suggests that HLH may reduce pressure on hospital beds without compromising safety, quality, and outcomes. Patient satisfaction is a variable here. It not only refers HAH works clinically, but also know whether patient feels more comfortable and more satisfied with this model of care. That will affect whether HAH can be scaled in practice because passive quality and satisfaction influence patients' acceptance of this care model. Levin study in US 2020 randomized control trial reference to above points, and all the references support our focus on satisfaction as a meaningful outcome. Now, in terms of feasibility, positive reasons to answer the study is realistic to propose. First, research question matches experimental design well. We are testing the effect of a specific intervention by a 4-week HAH program on a measurable outcome, which is self-reported patient satisfaction, makes the study both clear and manageable. The proposal is supported by existing evidence, codes, and the Levin studies give us both Asian and differences and international support, which suggests that testing HAH in Hong Kong is not unrealistic. However, challenges are there. Not all elderly patients with chronic diseases are equally suitable. Household conditions and caregiver support are challenges issues. In addition, patient satisfaction is self-reported, so it may be affected by communication ability, cognition, or personal expectations. Service coordination and public healthcare system alignment are great considerations. To conclude, current evidence suggests that HAH is a promising model. Proposal of a 4-week study in Hong Kong is significantly responding to local healthcare pressure, and its feasibility fit for proceeding, supported by both regional and international evidence, while practical challenges need to be addressed, such as patient suitability, caregiver support, and public health system alignment. For this reason, we believe this study is both worthwhile and realistic to propose. And this is the reference to support our arguments. And thank you very much. That's the end for our presentation.